After the Yankees have been inactive for most of the offseason, they finally made two major splashes on the free agent market on Friday afternoon. We're going to discuss those moves and more on this brand new episode of the Pinstripe Talk podcast, which begins right now.
You are listening to the Pinstripe Talk podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Pinstripe Talk podcast, powered to you by Delahanty Media. I'm your host, Nick Delahanty. If you are a returning member of our crew and like to listen to our show, we welcome you back. If you're new to our show and to our channel, we thank you for tuning in and talking some Yankees baseball with us. Unfortunately, no video stream for this episode, just the audio side of it, but don't worry, the show will be available for you on all of our outlets. Every podcasting platform from Apple Podcasts to Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it, it's there, as well as on our YouTube channel. If you're new to our page, follow us on social media at Pinstripe Talk ND on Twitter, Facebook searching up Pinstripe Talk Podcast, and on Instagram looking up Delahanty Media. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Delahanty Media. All you have to do is search it, hit that little red button, and help support our brand. If you're listening on the audio side of things, on a podcasting platform, we encourage you to subscribe, rate, and review the show. All feedback definitely goes a long way in helping promote our show. And if you're interested in helping promote our show even more, go to our website, DelahantyMedia.com, and you can find our official store where you can get your official Delahanty Media gear. Pinstripe Talk podcast gear, Delahanty Media gear, even Let's Debate podcast gear as well. There's a lot to offer in that website and on that store. Go check it out. Help support our brand. All proceeds that are earned and profited do go toward helping our brand grow. So we do appreciate all the support that we do get. Today's going to be a busy show. We got a lot to talk about. After an offseason where the Yankees have been mostly inactive, the Bronx Bombers struck two big deals on Friday afternoon. The first being the signing of DJ LeMahieu, bringing him back into the Bronx, and then adding Corey Kluber on a one-year deal. We're going to break down both of those deals for you in depth and also look at the Yankees' arbitration numbers. Luckily, the Yankees were able to reach agreements with all 8 of their players that were possibly up for arbitration. We'll get into those numbers toward the end of the show. Let's start the show off by talking about the Yankees' biggest move of the offseason, and that is the re-signing of DJ LeMahieu. DJ LeMahieu gets a 6-year, $90 million contract from the New York Yankees to stay in the Bronx to his age 37 season. And the move makes sense for both sides, and I'm going to take you through the little bit of a timeline that we've seen throughout the offseason. At first, it was reported that LeMahieu's camp wanted 5 years, close to $125 million, and the Yankees were not willing to budge past a 4th year, looking toward the future. It was rumored and reported that the Yankees' initial offer was 4 years at $78 million, so almost $20 million per year. And keep that in mind because that is an important number. Then, recently, over the last couple of days, you saw LeMahieu's camp start leaking out. They're getting frustrated with the process. They're going to start talking to other teams. And you heard the Dodgers and the Blue Jays and the Mets, who probably were out of it after they acquired Francisco Lindor, but you heard the rumors of other teams being involved. So it came to the point where Brian Cashman was not going to outbid himself and wasn't going to be in a bidding war against his own team. So he told LeMahieu's camp, come back to me with what you get on the market, and we will discuss it. And most people felt that the deal was going to be 4 or 5 years, that whether the Yankees were going to cave or LeMahieu's camp were going to cave. And then the numbers came out that it actually was reported a 6-year deal. Now, you may say, DJ's heading into his age 32-year-old season. A 6-year deal keeps him in the Bronx until he's 37 years old. The Yankees have a history of giving out some contracts to guys, and then at the end of the contract, it kind of bites them in the butt. But to me, this deal feels kind of different. I'm going to explain why. First and foremost, the Yankees could not have let DJ LeMahieu walk this offseason. The last contract they got, the 2-year, $24 million deal, was an absolute steal. All-Star, 2-time Silver Slugger, up for the MVP trophy. The guy has been phenomenal, and you can make the case that he's been the best Yankee over the last 2 seasons. And also, looking at the way LeMahieu plays, he's a guy that should age well. He's not this big-time slugger that relies on bat speed and, the power. He's a guy that has a very good contact rate, and even if his bat speed goes down a little bit, he should still be able to produce at a high level. He's a very smart hitter, very savvy hitter, and Yankee Stadium fits him very well. So for him, I think it made sense to stay in the Bronx because the ballpark and the dimensions and the way he plays fits Yankee Stadium well. And for those of you who are concerned down the road, you're going to have him at 36 or 37 years old, the Yankees have options. Before we even get into the contract numbers, the guy is versatile. You could play him at second base. You could play him at first base. You could play him at third base if needed. There is some flexibility. And now the other issue that you may have is, are the Yankees set with Gleyber Torres being at shortstop? Because this move kind of stifles them moving forward. And to be honest with you, I don't think that it really does stifle them the way that we all are looking at it. Let's see how it plays out. If Gleyber is able to handle shortstop, that's the best ideal situation. If he comes out in 2021 and really dominates at the position and shows that he could hit and field at a high level, it makes the Yankees' life a lot easier. But let's say he struggles, and knock on wood because we don't want that. If he struggles, the Yankees could still move LeMahieu over to first base and can move Luke Voit. They have options. It's not like they are stuck. It's not like they have a big-time contract at first base where they have to say, we have to keep that player there. They're making X amount of money. It's not that type of situation. So, yeah, it may seem like LeMahieu is penciled in as the Yankees' second baseman for the next 6 years, but that may not be the case. They could possibly move him down the line to put him in a better position to succeed. And we've seen that he is a good defender at 3 positions, that the Yankees can have some flexibility with him. The major thing about this contract, and you have to look at it from the annual value point of view, is the Yankees got a steal in this signing. LeMahieu's a guy who could have commanded $20 to $25 million on the open market. That's how good he is, and that's how well he's performed over the last couple of years. But the Yankees, if the contract holds true, are getting him at $15 million a year, which is only a $3 million raise from what he made in his first 2 years in the Bronx. So the Yankees looked at it like this. They're trying to stay under the luxury tax. They're trying to add more pieces to the puzzle now because they're trying to win a World Series. Having LeMahieu at a lower annual value helps them now and also helps him. Because let's face it, at 31 years old now, this is probably LeMahieu's last chance to strike a big deal on the open market. So he's probably looking for more stability, and that's probably where the 5 years were triggered by himself and his agent. But now he has a 6-year deal, and he has stability. And that's something that a lot of players look for in a contract. So in return, both sides gave up a little bit. LeMahieu gave up a little less annual value to get more years, and the Yankees gave more years to get the lower annual value. To me, the deal's a no-brainer. After the last 2 seasons and seeing how well LeMahieu fits on this team and how different he is offensively compared to some of the other guys they have in the lineup, Brian Cashman had to bring him back. First and foremost, if he let him walk, especially if he went to the Mets or the Blue Jays, or even the Dodgers for that matter, I don't think Yankee fans would have let him live it down. And that would have been a bad thing for him to deal with and for the organization to deal with. Yes, they're trying to stay under the luxury tax, but they had enough flexibility to get it done. I, at first, was a little weary of the 6-year deal. When it first was reported it was going to be 5 or 6 years, I'm thinking, oh boy, how much annual value are we getting here? But then the numbers came in, and I just feel like the Yankees got an absolute steal. It was a match made in heaven from the beginning. LeMahieu wanted to be back. He thrives here. The Yankees wanted him back. They thrive with him in the lineup. It just made sense. And by bringing him back, you could make the case that the Yankees' opening day lineup is set. Now, obviously, we know that there's a lot of offseason left and there's things to be done and guys could be traded or, there's things that could go on. But if you're looking at this team right now, they have a starting lineup that if you were playing today, they would be ready to go. They need some help pitching-wise, but the offense looks pretty good to me, to be honest, as long as everybody stays healthy, that is. So, for me, I'm relieved that it's done. I think that the longer it went on, I was getting a little weary on it. I was getting a little nervous, but overall, I always had that confidence that it was going to get done. And then the confidence kind of went higher for me when the Mets acquired Francisco Lindor, because I always felt that was the Yankees' plan B. I felt that that was the plan that Cashman was going to go to if LeMahieu did sign elsewhere. He was going to explore that option because Lindor is a top-tier shortstop, a great addition for any team, and the Mets made a great move to get him. But I always thought that was their next plan in place to try to get a deal done for him. But once that was off the table, I think that, number one, it hurt both sides because the Yankees lost some leverage because I think everybody knew that was where they were going to go. And the Yankees also gained some leverage because you take the Mets out of the equation. And the Mets, who, with new owner Steve Cohen, have said they want to spend a lot of money, would have been an interesting place where LeMahieu could have got a big contract. So it's over. We can finally breathe. LeMahieu will be in the Bronx for the next 6 years. I don't know about you guys, but yesterday I ordered my LeMahieu jersey. I've been waiting for this day to happen. I can't wait for it to come in. I love what he brings to the table. I love what he brings to the clubhouse. I love the professionalism. There is not anything that you could say bad about DJ LeMahieu, and I think that keeping him around long term is a great move for the New York Yankees. And if you don't think that this deal is very favorable for the Yankees, then I encourage you to look at it again because the lower annual value is definitely an enticing thing, especially with the Yankees wanting to stay under the luxury tax in the near future. So they finally get it done. That's the first big domino of the offseason to fall for the Bronx Bombers, and they solidify having one of their best players staying in the Bronx for the next 6 years. Now, the Yankees weren't done with the DJ LeMahieu signing. Just a couple hours later, it was reported on social media. You got to give credit to Talkin' Jake from John Boy Media. He was the first one to make this known on social media. Corey Kluber signed a 1-year deal with the New York Yankees. Kluber, going into his age 35-year-old season, has only pitched in 8 games, and that amounts to 36 2/3 innings over the last 2 years. And you may be saying to yourself, why did the Yankees give this guy $11 million? And here's why. Kluber, in an attempt to make a comeback, threw for about 20 clubs recently. And based off what he showed in that scouting day, a lot of teams showed a lot of interest, and the Yankees have been very high on Corey Kluber for a very long time, and this stems to his days when he was dominating as the ace of the Cleveland Indians. Now, there are some connections between the Yankees organization and Kluber. First and foremost, Kluber held his offseason workout for these teams at a facility in Florida that's owned by Eric Cressey. And if you don't know who Eric Cressey is, he is the head of the strength and conditioning programs for the Yankees. There is a connection there. The two have worked closely together. Cressey has really been helping Kluber as he rehabs from his shoulder injury. Also, the Yankees pitching coach, Matt Blake, where did he come from? He came from Cleveland. He is known for helping some of those Cleveland Indian pitchers thrive in their setting. And Kluber is no different than some of those other arms. If you look back at Kluber's numbers, he had 3 consecutive years in which he won 18 or more games. Actually, won the Cy Young Award twice. Had 4 18-plus win seasons as a member of the Indians. And the guy thrived in that role as the team's ace. He did have a couple of up and down seasons, but for the most part, he was dominant in his prime. And the Yankees are taking a very big gamble with him. But the gamble makes sense if you're looking at it from a Yankees perspective. First and foremost, there's not one team that has better information on Corey Kluber than the Yankees. If the Yankees staff didn't like what they saw from Kluber or use their inside information to their advantage, they would have never agreed to this contract. Now, the $11 million, I'm sure that most of that is probably incentive based. There's probably about $5 or $6 million guaranteed, and then the rest will be incentive based. The main thing for Kluber this offseason was he wanted a 1-year deal where he could come back, prove his value, prove that he's still the guy of old and get a bigger contract next offseason, whether it's from the Yankees or from another team. And for me, I do have my concerns. First and foremost, pitching only in 8 games over the last 2 years is concerning, especially considering the fact that the Yankees do, in fact, need starting pitching depth behind Garrett Cole. But it makes a lot of sense because if this guy is back on track and the Yankees could keep him healthy throughout the year, he's a guy that can be productive for them. I'm not saying that he's your number 2. I still think that the Yankees need to solidify that next spot in the rotation behind Garrett Cole. But he isn't a bad signing because first and foremost, he has postseason experience. If you could keep him healthy and in the rotation, that's going to help the Yankees tremendously. It's another arm that you can add into the mix. Also, what's the Yankees' biggest thing right now? They have a bunch of young starting pitching. Between Cole and Kluber, that's 2 veteran arms that have been there and done that and could give these guys a little bit of advice and encouragement as they look to become big league pitchers for the long term. I like the move. I really do. Am I scared that it may not pay off? Absolutely. But this is a low risk, high reward type of deal in my eyes. I really like that the Yankees took this chance. I don't think they would have taken it if there were concerns. I think that they're all in. I like it. I really do. I think Yankee fans should be excited about this because if you get the Corey Kluber that we know he can be, he has that potential to be a number 2 or a number 3 starter in this rotation down the stretch. The big thing for him is health. And I'm sure the Yankees are going to do everything and anything in their power to keep him healthy and productive. Now, let's look at the Yankees starting pitching options. Obviously, Garrett Cole is penciled in as your number 1. That's the obvious. Other than that, you have Kluber, who we mentioned hasn't really pitched much since 2018. You have Severino, who's coming back from Tommy John surgery. Don't expect to see him till July or August. Jordan Montgomery, who's been up or down. Domingo Germán, who has a long layoff from baseball due to his suspension, but his last time we saw him, won 18 games, may be a factor on this team. Then you got the young guys, Davy Garcia, Clark Schmidt, and Michael King. Now, my thing is, they still need at least one more starter. Why? They need innings eaters. It's not like the past where you can say, okay, 6 or 7 starters get you through. You got to remember, last year was a 60-game slate. So these guys are not built up for a full season. You're probably not going to get 200 innings out of Garrett Cole. You're probably not going to get 200 innings out of anybody this year. You're going to have to map it out, so you're going to need more depth. And if you start seeing guys like Kluber go down, and you deal with some more injuries down the road, it's going to hurt this team. They need to make a move. Whether it's a trade for a Musgrove or a Luis Castillo, if that's a possibility. Or you bring back a familiar face in Masahiro Tanaka. I still think the Yankees aren't done. I still think there is plenty of moves to be made in regards to the pitching. I could see them adding another reliever. I could see them adding another starter. I don't think Brian Cashman is done. I think he's at that point where he's going to look under every rock and try to find a deal that fits the Yankees' current needs and their future needs as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if more moves are on the way. But looking at this list of pitchers, yes, there is a tremendous upside with some of these guys. Garcia, Schmidt, King, Montgomery. You could see these guys being effective starting pitching. But with the Yankees needing to win right now, it is a little concerning going into the season with this group as your main set of options. Now, if you bring back a Tanaka or you get a Musgrove or a Castillo or another quality arm on the market, it makes things a little bit more clear. You have more stability to look at. And I think that's what the Yankees are looking for because I know that the last couple of seasons coming up short in the playoffs has really, been disappointing to everybody. And with other teams in the American League kind of downgrading this offseason, look at Tampa losing their top 2 starters. You look at a couple of other teams who have made moves that really haven't impacted them. The Yankees could take the American League. It's going to be a matter of if they could find the necessary pitching to get them over the hump. And that will remain to be seen. But I like the Kluber deal. I think that it's going to work out for them. Obviously, the injury part is a big factor. But if he's healthy, he should be an effective guy that Aaron Boone can rely on every fifth day. Along with the two big roster moves the Yankees made with the signings, Friday was also arbitration day, and there was the last chance for teams to reach agreements with players before they hit arbitration. We know how sticky that situation could be. Go back to the Dellin Betances days where those negotiations didn't go over well in arbitration, but the Yankees were able to come to an agreement with all 8 players that hit arbitration this year. And let's go through some of the numbers, shall we? We'll start off with Aaron Judge. Judge gets $10.1 million for 2021, which is a raise from the $8.5 million he would have earned last year if it was a full season. Gary Sanchez gets $6.35 million. I thought that was going to be a little lower, but they get it done. Still really not bad for a starting catcher, especially if Gary could get back on track. Clint Frazier gets a nice raise, $2.1 million. Montgomery gets $2.1 million as well. Luke Voigt, after leading the American League and major leagues in home runs in the shortened season, agrees to $4.7 million, which is an absolute steal to me. Gleyber Torres gets $4 million. Hopefully he has a bounce back year. Chad Green, who many people think is the Yankees' most effective reliever, gets $2.15 million. Gio Urshela gets $4.65 million. So those are your basic numbers there. And overall, that gives you 8 guys that reached agreements before arbitration. And again, I'm glad they are able to avoid that, because that is always a tricky situation to deal with, especially when a player has a set goal and the club doesn't agree with it, and it starts to get sticky and they start to bring out some flaws of the players, and sometimes it doesn't end up well. So looking at it right now, the Yankees are getting close to that luxury tax threshold. And for those of you who are paying attention to the roster, they have 40 men on the 40-man roster. So they are going to have to make some moves to add Kluber and add LeMahieu. So the Yankees are obviously not done. But if you're going by projections, the Yankees are creeping in on that $210 million threshold. So it's going to be interesting how they proceed with the rest of the offseason. Now, obviously, there's moves to be made. There are some contracts that they can shed. Maybe an Adam Ottavino clears up some space if they could find a trade partner. Maybe you attach a prospect to him. But I don't think they're done. Possibly moves this weekend once the deals become official, because you obviously have to make moves to add those guys to the roster before the deals become official. So we'll have more to talk about over the next couple of weeks. And as of now, it looks like spring training is going to be a go in February like normal, where pitchers and catchers report. And I think that you're going to see the hot stove heat up some more, especially with regards to the bigger names. I think over the next couple of weeks, we'll start seeing some movement, some trades possibly happening, and some key guys finding some new homes on the free agent market. But as all that comes down and more, we will continue to give you the latest news and updates regarding the New York Yankees as the offseason rolls along, as we wait and anticipate opening day 2021. Yankees fans, we finally got some moves to talk about. It's been a very quiet offseason, to say the least. We've been waiting for this to happen. We're happy LeMahieu's back. We're even more happy the Yankees added some pitching. We're really interested to see where Brian Cashman and crew go from there. And as always, follow us on social media at Pinstripe Talk ND on Twitter, Pinstripe Talk Podcast on Facebook, Delahanty Media on Instagram. Go to DelahantyMedia.com for all the latest news and updates regarding the Delahanty Media brand. Reminder, if you're listening on a podcasting platform, subscribe, rate, and review. Whether it's Apple Podcast, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, show us some love. If you're on YouTube watching the video stream of this show, make sure you subscribe. Hit that little red button. Always appreciate it when you hit that little red button. And as always, let's go Yankees. Until next time, my name is Nick Delahanty, and this has been another episode of the Pinstripe Talk Podcast, powered by Delahanty Media. Get your DJ LeMahieu jerseys on. You'll be using them for a very long time. Take care, everyone. Let's go Yankees. We'll be in touch very soon. Stay tuned.